there are two whales in the ocean, swimming close to one another, chatting. And one says to the other, "My New Year's resolution is to lose 38,000 pounds." This was a cartoon in the New Yorker. I laughed so hard. Well, I just laughed. Hello, this is Pat Coakley, and this is episode 125 of PODSNACKS, the Art of the Diet. And it is a new year, and I'm back after a month of doing I don't know what, and I'm glad to be back, and I'm also dedicating this next year to finding one's voice. And I've got some reasons for that I'll share with you in a minute. But one of the things that I just want to start off with out of the box is that before I recorded this podcast, I was starting a private Facebook group because I want to talk to you about that. And here's what happened. I created this group. I clicked on secret group because I think when there's a group discussing weight issues, I don't want any trolls in the group. None. So that's fine. So then I read, well, in order to invite people to a secret Facebook group, they all have to be friends of yours on your friends list. So the best thing to do is to create a group as a closed group or a public group first, get your members, and then create a secret group. And I went, yeah. Now, why didn't I Google that first? In other words, ass backwards. I was going about the creation of this group. And I thought to myself, this is why I'm dedicating this next year to finding one's voice, because sometimes we have a lot of good intentions with our voice, but we come at it ass backwards. And with weight management, oh my God, I think some days ass management would be a compliment to some of my strategies. But at any rate, I'm starting off the new year with enthusiasm, with some optimism. I did not start off 2017 with that same optimism. I was still in the absolute funk of my life following the election, and none of my feelings have changed. They've just completely been reinforced. But the bottom line is that after a year of the wear and tear of that anxiety, I've decided I simply have to create a voice within myself that makes sense. And if anyone else wants to listen to it, I am privileged that you do. And if you don't, I'm, sorry that you don't, but I hope you can reconcile your voice with the world around you. And that's what I'm trying to do. So first things first, my month of December, I tried the freestyle program, and I am really glad I did. Not because I kept it really, really closely. I didn't. Not that I honestly was a fanatic or really crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. I didn't do that either. But I was just simply having it as a large structure that was flexible. And I really benefited from it. I'm starting the year down from where I was in December, not by much, but by some. And to me, that is really progress, because if some of you have followed some of my Facebook posts, really, I put on a holiday buffet table that just was missing some major food groups, like fruits, like vegetables. One photo I had, there wasn't even any protein on the table. So that I managed my way through that, I'm sort of proud of myself. And also, I was very glad when January 2nd dawned, because I was back to, quote, normal. And I do want to do more of the tracking, which historically I've really not done it outside of the 1 year, 2009 to 2010, where I lost the weight, when I did track religiously during that year. But subsequent years I've not. And my only real accountability was the scale on a weekly basis, and sometimes more frequently. But I enjoyed transferring some of the accountability to the tracking on my phone. Activity points, food points. Again, I didn't do it religiously like I had done in the losing weight phase, but what I enjoyed, and I'm starting my 9th year now of maintaining a 60-pound weight loss. So I must say that to say that I'm enjoying the idea of tracking will show you how far I've come. Because, oh man, I hated that part. I really hated that part. But I now see it as a way, as a means to an end. And I also see it as more enjoyable than the white knuckle ride in between weigh-ins. And as you know, I don't do the meetings any longer, but I do every Tuesday. I weigh myself, come hell or high water. I do not BS myself out of that date with destiny. And I must say, I sort of enjoy knowing through the tracking, when I do it, that I'm in control. And that is such an essential positive feeling to all of us who are maintaining a weight loss. We're in control, but not in a frenzy like I was in that first year of losing weight, where it was much more rigid, much more black and white. I was not focusing on much else but that year. And now 9 years out, my focus is splintered all over the place. But I've got this as a daily challenge, and I've got to come up with strategies for it. I can't pretend it's not there. And one of the reasons I'm dedicating this year to the finding one's voice is that I have multiple voices on the web. This one, PODSNACKS, The Art of the Diet. Then I have the Photo Gardener, which is my portfolio of still life photographs. And then I have patcoakley.com, which was started out as a blog in 2008 and then became sort of like an editorial blog where I would take current events and comment about them. And then it became more photography based, not garden photography based, but some of the different mixed media techniques that I do. And I've just decided to try to coordinate all of these things. So I'm in the process of simplifying my voice. And so I thought, it's something that I think as I go along might be helpful to all of you as well. And so hopefully that will be an added plus to the daily slog of weight maintenance. Now, I also referred to some changes that I'm going to make, and I'm not entirely sure what the sequence is going to be, but as I said, I wanted to start a private Facebook group for my listeners. And to be honest, I don't know how many listeners I have because I don't pay for the ultra plan at my podcast provider. So I just know that hundreds of people download this podcast each week. And I have my email list where I'm pretty sure most of those folks listen to the podcast or sleep through it or, at least are notified that there's a new one. But there are hundreds that do not show up on my screen as I know who you are or know what you're interested in hearing. And I would really like to start off the year by getting to know who my audience is so that I can try to speak to the audience in their many concerns and trials and tribulations. And so I'm going to ask you all who are listening and who have a minute to email me at artofthediet@gmail.com. And you don't have to say anything. I'd love it if you did, but you don't have to. Just put survey in the subject line. That way, I'll have your email address and I'll be able to email you back a questionnaire that I put together of my audience, what might be of interest, what isn't of interest, what you'd like to hear that you haven't heard, what you'd like to hear more of that you have heard. And I'd also like to get a sense of how many and how varied my audience is. And I really don't have a sense of that. iTunes or any of these podcast apps don't ever give you, exactly how many subscribers you have. So I'm wondering if we could start off the year with you just emailing me quickly with the subject line survey. And if you'd like to leave a message, I would love to read it, but I understand that some of you may not want to do that. But my email is artofthediet@gmail.com. And one of the things I'm going to create in the next week properly is a Facebook group, because some have emailed me about doing this and I've not done it. But at the same time, I've been trying to get my video voice together, and I think, fingers crossed, salt shakers thrown over my shoulder, I think I've got that down. And if you've gone to my Facebook page lately, facebook.com/artofthediet, you will have seen some freestyle updates over the course of December. And personally, I'm thinking the whole weight maintenance issue comes down to a very personal issue. It's not a general issue it's not a issue that doesn't have a lot of emotions attached to it. And I was thinking that the audio version of this podcast certainly communicates my voice and to what degree my voice can communicate who I am, my words as well as intonations. I'm sure that has some effect. But I was also wondering what effect a video blog might have or a video podcast might have. And I'm going to start with doing Facebook Live broadcasts, and that will be at a certain time where I'm going to be live doing a broadcast. You'd be able to see me, you'd be able to put a comment in the broadcast, ask a question, tell me whatever you want to tell me. And I'd be able to see that and to answer it live. I'm going to try it. I've done some videos, as you will see, on my facebook.com/ArtoftheDiet site, but I've pre-recorded them and then uploaded them. What I'm thinking of is trying to do a live broadcast and then be able to see if it has any effectiveness, whether folks like that format or not. And I also have to figure out how to do it within a group. And this is going to take a little education on my part so I don't screw it up like I did the initial creation of this group. P.S. I created the group and then I deleted the group within about a half hour. So I'm not even sure I can recreate the same name of the group, which was the Art of the Diet group. So I will get back to you on that. But I'm trying not to do things ass backwards this year. And of course, boom, right out of the gate, January 3rd, I enter the room rear first. But as I think you can hear, I'm sort of feeling a little more positive, and I guess just longevity with living with dread has just forced me into taking control of what I can control and trying to help folks who listen to me to do the same thing. And I wanted to talk just a little bit about how important I think a voice is, and also to make some comments on something that Michelle Obama said, actually in Boston this fall, and probably the only thing I disagree with Michelle Obama on, and that is she was talking about women and women's voices, and she was struggling with imagining that the large percentage of women, at least white women, listened to a Donald Trump and thought his voice resonated with them more than Hillary Clinton's voice. And she was just like struck that how can that be? And she sort of attributed it to the woman who was choosing to listen to and prefer Donald Trump's voice, to the fact that she had not yet found her own voice. And when I first heard it, I thought, well, that's possible. That's, I guess, plausible. But as I've gone on here, I don't think that is the case. I think that both women and men who voted for him liked something in his voice that reflected them and didn't reflect a confusion on their part or a lack of knowing. And while I would like to think that his appeal would be just totally 100% not there. Clearly, there is an appeal there. And I think Michelle Obama was trying to say that at least the appeal to women was based on women not having yet developed their own voice and taking on the voice of others. And I just flat out don't think that's true. I just think some women found it just fine, what he was saying. And some of them would say, well, I don't like some of the things he says, but what he's going to do for me is why I'm voting for him. So I must say I have a different view of what voice means, because to find your voice doesn't mean that you begin to toe the line and see the light according to someone else. To find your voice may mean that you have to listen to something that you don't really want to hear about yourself. But you need to listen to it because it's your voice. And there was a whole group of white evangelical women who said, I wouldn't have believed that someone like Donald Trump would be the one espousing the right, their word, not mine, position on abortion. And I just choose not to focus on what is unpleasant about him, but what can affect me that he can do. You know what? That doesn't sound like a woman who hasn't found her voice. She's really unpacking that voice and saying, I'm going along with this guy not because I particularly admire him, but because he's going to do for me on one issue what I think should be done. So I don't think there's ambiguity there or a lack of development. I just think that someone who believes that their world belief is paramount to every other factor related to someone. And they will live with something in order to get something. So once again, I don't think it's a matter of not knowing one's voice. So that is my single disagreement with Michelle Obama, but I must say that I think it applies to weight management too. There are so many times that our voice on, or my voice on this, weakens or modulates or backtracks, or I justify something in saying, I deserve it, but boo. It's just this mush of words sometimes. And that's why the accountability of the freestyle program sort of came at a good time, because it just sort of strikes through all the mush and all the BS I might have been saying to myself. And so finding my voice is going to be, on the surface, I'm going to try to consolidate my presence on the internet, how people publicly see me. I'm going to try to, through this podcast, focus in on the weight maintenance journey that I'm facing in the 9th year, as honestly as I can, and as helpful as I can be. And one of the things I realized in rebroadcasting a month of old podcasts was that when I first started the podcast, it was also coming out weekly with a daily blog that I wrote. And there were always links to different articles that I read during the week when it was attached to the podcast page. And I found that when I was rebroadcasting, I thought, I like rereading some of this stuff and clicking these links. So I think I'm going to start with leaving links to articles on the Art of the Diet page, some without commentary on my part, just links that I think might be helpful to you. The cartoon that I started off with from the New Yorker, um, I don't think I can post that because that's someone else's work, but if I can, I will. But I'm going to try to widen out the scope, go beyond my words, and just try to give you some of the articles that appealed to me during the week. They may be specifically about weight maintenance. They may, like this week, be about how to make New Year's resolutions and goals, how to achieve them most practically. And also, I'm going to give you some links to some of the media that I consume, A, for entertainment, and B, maybe for education. And that may be some podcasts that I listen to, some Netflix specials that I listen to, some movies. And this week, I'm going to direct you to the comedian Dave Chappelle on Netflix if you haven't. He's got 2 new specials, Equanimity and The Bird Revelation. And he's in a lot of hot water for these specials, but for me, I just found them fascinating, funny, yes, but sobering, and it was a point of view I've not heard ever from anybody else about the Me Too movement, as well as Black issues and white issues, and I just recommend, if you've got it, listen to it. And you may get offended, but I think you get a little bit of an education here that may be helpful down the line. And I'm also going to include a link to a Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks interview that they did about the movie The Post and their discussion of the Me Too movement. And so that's my goal, is to widen out what I give you from just my voice to maybe a video podcast, which I'm just not sure how that works, but for sure to do some video on facebook.com/artofthediet. And I would really appreciate if you would, out there in listening land, email me at artofthediet@gmail.com with the subject line survey, or any comment you'd like to make about the podcast, what you'd like to hear. But as long as I have your email address, I'll be able to email you the survey. And you can decide at that point whether you want to fill it out and answer me back. But I want to try to make some sort of an aggressive effort to get to know my audience and see where I can take this podcast, writing, video, whatever, and see where I can take it and how it can best help keep us all focused in on what is our daily problem, regardless of how we'd like to pretend it isn't. It is. And so I'm hoping to start the year off with a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of humility, not knowing everything by any means, but wanting to try to educate myself as to how best to put one foot in front of the other in 2018. And one of them is to try to find my voice and take responsibility for my voice and not pretend that it's a voice that doesn't have the consequences that it has. For example, I know that talking about politics offends some early listeners. They may have since gone, but there may be new ones coming on board that go, oh man, I don't want to have any part of this discussion. I'm just interested in weight maintenance issues. And I have to say to you, this is part of my journey, and this is going to be an ongoing challenge for me, how to integrate my world within this house to the greater world. And I think women as a group are emerging in ways in this past year that have absolutely flabbergasted me in both ways. I was astonished to see how many white women voted for him, and I was astonished to see so many women standing up against sexual abuse and sexual inappropriate behavior. So I'm going to just try to focus my voice in such a way that you'll know who I am when you hear me, and I'm taking responsibility for it, and if I lose listeners, I lose them. But hopefully I'm going to at least be an authentic voice that you can resonate with or not, but you'll know what I'm about. And hopefully some of the links that I'm going to publish with this podcast will give you a bit of the wider world that I'm trying to deal with, and I suspect many of you are trying to deal with too. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. At least January 3rd, 2018. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for some of the funny things you send me. But honestly, all of you out there, even if you have contacted me before, if you wouldn't mind just emailing me artofthediet@gmail.com with survey in the subject, and anything else you want to write, fine, but just do that survey. And then I'm going to send out something and hopefully get to know you a little better, and we'll continue on with 2018 together. All right, and check out the facebook.com/artofthediet and see if the video thing seems like something you're interested in. Because I'm sort of excited about this, actually. And I do know this. They will take place during the day, because I saw myself in studio light one night. I went, oh dear God. 72 in studio light at night? No. So I'm going to go with natural light, northern light, softens the skin. And I wish you well. Honestly, find your own voice. I'd like to hear it, even if I disagree with it. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.